All right, welcome everybody to the Thursday, February 22nd meeting of the Planning Commission for the City of Loganville. I'd like to call this meeting to order. At this time, if I could ask you to stand for the invocation and the pledge, please. All right, let us pray. Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for your love, your grace, and your mercy, and we ask now for your guidance during this time that we meet. Give us wisdom, give us clear thought, and help us to do the business for this city, for the best of the residents, for the entire city. And we just thank you again for being with us, and thank you for this time. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Be seated, please. All right. Has everybody from the commission had a chance to look at last meeting's agenda and meeting notes? Are there any changes or additions or deletions that need to be made? All right. I don't hear anything. Do I have a motion that we accept the minutes from our last meeting?
So moved.
I got
Second.
a motion and a second. Everybody in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And it's approved. Thank you. All right. We'll go ahead and go into the new business tonight. What I'm going to do is read both cases together when we start off here. When I finish with that, then Robbie Schwartz is going to have a couple of comments. And then at that time, we'll ask the applicant to come up and make a statement, okay? All right, our first case tonight is case R24-005. The Revived Lane, is it Lane? Okay, the Revived Lane Group, CO Anderson, Tate, and Carr, filed an application requesting to rezone approximately 11.62 plus or minus acres located at 246 Line Street in Loganville, 30052. Map and parcel number is LG040062 in Walton County. The property owner is Lock and Roll Storage, LLC. The current zoning is MHP, and the requested zoning is RM6, with the proposed development of fee simple townhomes. Then we also have case R24-006. Again, the Revived Lane Group, CO Anderson, Tate, and Carr filed the application requesting to rezone approximately 4.981 acres plus or minus, located at 234 Line Street in Loganville, 30052. This map and parcel number is LG040063, Walton County. The property owner is Ronald Clifford Peeler. The current zoning at this particular parcel is L1, and the requested zoning is RM6 with the proposed development of fee simple townhomes. All right, Robbie?
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to read in the record the amended staff recommendations. After a meeting on February 9th with the applicant and representatives from the city's Streets and Highway Department and the Fire Department, the staff recommendation is to approve the rezone with the following conditions. As a result of complications in meeting various roadway design criteria for a second entrance to the complex, staff amended its first recommendation to require a second driveway along Lawrenceville Road that will serve as an emergency access point only, that will be gated with a Knox box, and this is subject to GDOT approval. There are no changes to the second condition, which was to widen the roadway on Line Street, creating dedicated left turn and right turn lanes for no fewer than 5 cars attempting to turn onto Lawrenceville Road, though this is subject to GDOT approval. And we'd like to amend the third recommendation to state the need for installation of a privacy fence and planting of screening evergreen trees as infill where necessary between the townhomes and abutting residential parcels located at 4077 and 4125 Lawrenceville Highway, as well as along the property line of 4075 Lawrenceville Highway to the stream buffer. Nothing is to be done within the sewer easement or stormwater pond access easement, and this will be subject to review by planning staff before the issuance of a development permit. That's it.
All right, thank you, Robbie. All right, at this time, we'd like to invite the applicant to come up and make a statement.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission. My name is Melody Glauton with Anderson Tate and Carr, 1960 Satellite Boulevard in Duluth. It is my privilege to be here this evening on behalf of the Revive Land Group. We do have a presentation. I think we have some technical challenges, so we did circulate that earlier, and I'll sort of walk through some of those with you. I do have Mr. Neville Allison here this evening as well from the Revive Land Group. And so if you take a look at that presentation, one of the things that we wanted to address and highlight before we get into the details of the specific project is with regard to the city's comprehensive plan. And that plan, obviously the city takes a great deal of time and resources to implement a comprehensive plan, but what you see from that plan is that the population in the city is approximately just over 14,000 and is anticipated to grow by another 1,200 residents by 2026. It also identifies the median age. Right now, the median age is 36.8, and again, that is anticipated to grow to 37.5 over the next 5 years. Those facts are critically important because not only does the comprehensive plan indicate that one of the struggles that the city is currently having is to retain a young population and young residents. And so a strategy to combat that is to allow a wider variety of housing types. And also discovered in the comprehensive plan is that there's a desire among the city residents currently to revitalize downtown. And so we think that this project is specifically in line with those strategies and with the information and the data within the comprehensive plan. As you can see, also from a downtown survey results, is that a vast majority of the residents do not want downtown to stay in its current state. They are looking for revitalization and growth and development. Also in that survey, it indicates that the majority of citizens surveyed stated that Loganville should allow owner-occupied townhomes to support the redevelopment of downtown. So with that, I'll go into a little bit of details about the specific project itself. Again, as indicated earlier, this is a request for a rezoning of approximately 16.58 acres of property that is located at 246 and 234 Line Street. That's just west of the intersection with Loganville Highway. The property is an assemblage of 2 tax parcels. So we have 2 tax parcels, and there's frontage along Loganville Highway as well as Line Street. So as indicated earlier, the property is currently zoned MHP. That's your manufactured home park zoning classification. And we are requesting to rezone the property to RM6, which is the multifamily residential medium density classification. The goal is to develop this property for a townhome community with 93 units. Those would be fee simple owner-occupied units, not rental units, but owner-occupied units. And so again, you can see this particular area. Oh, you got it right. This particular area, it is immediately adjacent to both industrial and residential uses. And so for that reason, we believe that this would provide an excellent opportunity to have what we call transitional zoning. So again, you're going from industrial to residential. So, a more intensive use to a less intensive use as you graduate across those properties. The proposal would obviously provide for additional housing types that the citizens themselves have indicated a desire to see. And it would provide a catalyst for the revitalization of downtown Loganville. These townhomes specifically would be a minimum square footage of 1,800 square feet with 2-car garages. And we certainly understand that price point is important for not only the commission and the elected officials to understand, but for community members so they can understand what impact, if any, these developments would have on them personally. And so while obviously market conditions fluctuate, we do anticipate the price range of these homes to be up into the high 300s, 375. And so in the packet of information and also within our slideshow this evening, the architectural design elements are intended to be constructed with a variety of facades. So you have a nice, high-quality development that has brick, stacked stone, hardy plank, shake, and board and batten. As you heard with regard to the opening of this project, the property would be, have an access on Line Street, as well as an access for emergency-only purposes onto Loganville Highway. We have worked with the staff, and we would like to thank the staff for their assistance with this project. They've been very easy to work with, and we appreciate them communicating with us throughout this pending application. You should have a copy of the site plan as well. It's up here on the screen for you to see. But with that, again, we are asking for this to be rezoned to MHP, from MHP to RM8 for the development of a townhome community. I do have Mr. Neville Allison here this evening. He can address any specific questions that you may have, and certainly happy to address any questions that the commission has as well.
Thank you, ma'am. Does the commission have any questions for the applicant right now, or does Mr. Allison want to speak first?
Neville Allison, 3500 Lennox Road, Atlanta, Georgia, 30326. I'm the managing partner of the Revive Land Group. A lot of developers will come before commissions and let their attorneys do all of the talk and maybe kind of hide who they are or what they are. That's certainly not what our company is. We try to be as transparent as possible. That's why I always like to get up here and introduce myself, try to answer as many questions as possible and kind of walk everybody through what we're trying to do and why we're trying to do it. I think Ms. Glauton did a great job on touching on all the high points. You know, starting with the comprehensive plan, I think she was referencing, there was a survey that was done in the back of the comprehensive plan. I think there were about 700 respondents. And, you know, without a doubt, you could never make anybody happy, but something that reaches that many people kind of gives a good barometer on the city's needs and wants. Within that comprehensive plan, the vast majority, 80+%, responded to that survey saying they did not want to see downtown Loganville stay the same that it is today. Also in that report, it said, are you in favor of apartments to further the development of downtown? The same vast majority responded no. However, when asked if they supported some owner-occupied townhomes to support the redevelopment of downtown, 65 to 70%, I can't remember the exact number, but the majority said that they did support townhomes to support the revitalization of downtown. So again, while I fully expect people to stand up in opposition or voice their concerns because you can't make everyone happy, I think that's a good general barometer that the citizens of Loganville believe that additional rooftops are going to help stimulate commerce and bring Loganville you know, back to where everybody wants to see it, with restaurants and coffee shops and more of a vibrant downtown than there is today. I think if you could go to the page with the population growth, it's the second from the third page, I believe. It just kind of talks on some headlines where it talks about 2 million more people moving to Atlanta between now and 2050. You know, that equals about 300,000 people coming to Gwinnett and Walton counties combined. The growth is coming. And if you don't provide quality housing for these folks, the city could get missed, or it could go over, or worse, people could come through and force non-quality housing. So I just wanted to touch on that. Lastly, I know a big issue of rental versus for sale is always a hot topic. People hate apartments. They think it's a dirty word, particularly in some of the cases that I've seen here in Loganville. It's a hot topic. And so I wanted to just proffer a rental cap condition. Our intent is for these townhomes to be 100% owner occupied. We have no intention of a purpose-built rental community. Typically, we see between a 10 and a 15% cap on rentals. What that does is if someone goes through a divorce or has a job relocation, it will still allow that owner to rent their townhome for a period of time and not, lose their livelihood. But it also prevents it from being an apartment complex, which again is 100% not our intent. If you'll cycle through just the end of the presentation, we've created some digital renderings. So those were the renderings of the units, and here is actual streetscape. You won't see a lot of developers put this together because they're very expensive. But you can see our pocket parks, the landscaping, the quality of the architecture. It's been very well thought out and planned. The idea is to have community gathering spaces and a Class A community versus trying to chase the last dollar that you see a lot of developers do. With that, we'll reserve the rest of our time. I don't know if there's a clock running, but we're happy to answer any questions you guys have. And I appreciate your time tonight.
Thank you, sir. All right, any questions from the commission right now? All right, go ahead.
You go ahead, Tiffany, I'll follow up.
Hi, I'm Tiffany Ellis. Thank you for your presentation, and thank you for coming out today. My first question is more for the community. Would you please explain how the emergency exit with the proposed Knox box would work, like in
Yes,
just
ma'am.
real time, kind of?
Absolutely. So International Fire Code requires a certain number of entrances for a certain number of units. Per that code, we are below the number of units to have 2 access points. We had a preliminary meeting with Robbie's team, the Loganville Fire Department, as well as the Loganville Traffic Department. And in talking through the issues with them, it is a safety concern. If one entrance closes or if something happens there where there's a fire and there isn't another access into the community, it's a safety issue. And so what we did was we worked with planning staff and came up with the emergency access only onto Highway 20. So not only what that does is give a second access point in the event our primary entrance is blocked, that the fire trucks have access through what's called a knock box, which only allows emergency vehicles through. But it's also pretty much the furthest point away from where our primary entrance is to where we could have an emergency access only entrance. So what that does is you want to try to have the entrances as spaced as possible so that you're providing equal access to different parts of the development.
Would that come out at the end of the first street when you go in off of Line Street and you hang a right? Would it come out off over there or from the back by the Pocket Park?
It would come out at our first hammerhead against Highway 20. So if you pull up the site plan, you pull into our subdivision, you hang off Line Street, you turn right, and there you go, that's it. So if you can spin that around to north-south, north is page left, and east is straight up. And so you can see there at the end of our hammerhead, you can barely see it there, this zoomed out, but it actually shows the emergency access road there.
Okay. On the rental cap, you mentioned that you typically see 10 to 15%. Would you guys be opposed to us asking for stipulations that you have an HOA that requires that there's a limit on your
Absolutely.
rentals?
We encourage both the zoning condition as well as the HOA condition. We wanted to follow us around on our covenants, and we want the city of Loganville to feel good about putting it down as a zoning condition if that's what they want to do. And all of our communities are professionally managed with an HOA, a mandatory HOA.
I noticed that in the plans, I did not see anything such as like a community house or anywhere for your residents to gather. I live in a neighborhood that is HOA, and it's kind of important to have a clubhouse or somewhere to actually meet. It's 90-plus units. Is there a possibility to get some kind of a building or a place, a meeting area in the
Sure.
subdivision?
So we have it designed, again, if you look here on the site plan, and you can actually, if you go through the presentation, it's the second to last picture, or the last picture. We've got some shots of the Pocket Park. Right now, we just have it designed as a community gathering area with a grass pavilion. If it was important to put a covered pavilion, I think we could absolutely do that. The issue with a clubhouse with 93 units may sound like a lot, but it's not enough to support, typically not enough to support a clubhouse, where that means a higher HOA dues, a higher burden on the homeowners, and that affects their affordability as well. And so for a project this size with the product type, that's why we went with the Pocket Park. But if we wanted to turn it into a grilling area, you know, with a covered pavilion, we'd totally be open to that.
No problem. No, thank you.
Sorry, Keith said something, I kind of went blank for a second there. What was my last question? So a covered pavilion, that's a little weird, you know, if it's raining or whatever, you'd have to, it's a little weird. But my last question is, you said that you're used to having a company to manage your HOAs. Would they be local, in-state? How does that work?
We haven't gotten that far yet, but typically they definitely, at the very least, have a local division and a local office.
I think it's important that someone's able to be on the ground that can drive around and actually put eyes on the
Oh, without
development
a
to know
doubt.
what's going on.
There's an on-site community manager within that HOA.
On-site?
Yes, ma'am. I mean, that comes to the site to make sure that everything's being maintained and inspected.
How frequently, typically?
Once a week at the least.
Okay, but they're not housed on site?
No, ma'am.
Because I didn't see anything like that in
No,
the
they're not
plans.
housed on
Okay,
site.
thank you.
If I could, to kind of follow off on that, in my experience, HOAs usually have staff or boards that are on-site residents.
That's correct.
So they would also be involved in that as well, correct?
That's right.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right, okay, thanks. Amanda?
Hi. I live, in all fairness, and for everybody out there, I could throw a rock and hit this on Fair Street. Have you investigated any exit onto 20 with DOT?
We have, yes, ma'am. And unfortunately, a pure entrance on Highway 20 is not possible due to our site's frontage as it relates to the existing intersection with Line Street. Georgia DOT requires a set spacing between driveways or intersections. And just our limited frontage on Highway 20 doesn't allow us to get far enough away from Line Street to put a full access entrance there on Highway 20.
Okay. And I'm sure you've probably not studied this and are not aware of it, but the intersection of Line Street and Fair Street is a dangerous little intersection.
Yes, ma'am. And so, just to that point, again, we're not a small development company. We've brought kind of our whole team here tonight. So we have our in-house engineer, Barry Etheridge, who's a professional engineer. And we also have our traffic engineer with A&R Engineering, who performed the traffic study for us on our development. It's not a city requirement to have a traffic study, but we went ahead and commissioned one anyway to study all of the intersections near us. And so, like, for instance, Line Street shows that, and there was a concern raised by staff, that there's a backing up or a delay for folks coming off Line Street to turn left on 20. So one of the things that we are doing with our development, instead of just leaving the existing problem, we are committing and agreeing as a zoning condition to widen Line Street to allow a dedicated left-hand turn lane. So what that means is if you're a right-hand turner on Line Street, you no longer have to wait behind the folks trying to turn left onto Highway 20. You have your own dedicated lane so that you can turn right. So we're actually improving, it's one of the rare opportunities we get to say where we're actually improving the existing traffic condition with our development.
But that being said, you're only improving a portion of the property or of Line Street that comes out right there at your property. You have no intention of actually improving Line Street as a whole all the way from 20 to Logan Drive.
We can't, our project doesn't touch it all, it's not our road or our property.
Right.
But we are improving it on everywhere we touch.
Well, and the reason I bring that up is because Line Street is literally crumbling. There's sections of it that have to be repaved and repatched and culverts. It floods when it rains.
Right. Yes, ma'am.
The roadway itself, we cannot make decisions based on traffic.
So I know the culvert you're referring to. It's a 24-inch concrete culvert that runs from the industrial building along the creek just west of Pecan. And that was where the flooding, I think, was occurring. It looks like the head wall's fairly new and that the city's done some work there on that road recently.
And it'll be bad again next year. This is an ongoing problem.
Yes, ma'am. Culverts need to be
Not to
maintained,
mention, the
for sure.
roadway is just simply not wide enough.
No, it's
I mean,
itty-bitty.
it's itty-bitty. You get big trucks coming in one direction because they're trying to cut off.
Sure.
Going around all the traffic in Loganville, so they come across it. I mean, there are times when you have to pull over to let.
Yes, ma'am.
Big
And
trucks
to
come
that
through.
point, we are widening the road with our frontage, as I said. And then I think it's also important to point out that our site, a portion of it is already zoned light industrial. So
Oh,
you
I
could
know.
put a 30,000 square foot warehouse on it and pull more tractor trailers onto the road. And so again, I just feel like a residential development is more important to the character area that's there on Line Street versus its existing zoning.
I have another question.
Yes, ma'am.
How are you absolutely going to guarantee that these won't turn into rentals?
Because
Absolutely
it's a-
guarantee it.
A zoning condition is law, and so anyone that wants to go against that would be breaking the law.
But I can't knock on your door and say, hi, do you own or rent? It's basically unenforceable even with an HOA. A few years ago, we voted to allow a 55 and older community on 20, and they turned right around and made it into an entirely rental residential subdivision. And it's a nice looking place.
Sure, I believe
But you
the
can-
cottages at Loganville, is that the one you're referring to? the built to
No,
purpose?
it's the one,
Right-hand side.
it's going out 20 towards Grayson, just out, just below
Sure.
Line Street.
Well, I guarantee you that if they've turned it into rentals, there was not a zoning condition prohibiting them.
But zoning, again,
Yeah, I was
it's
just- that's what I was gonna ask you.
unenforceable. I mean,
Yeah.
I can't knock on the door and ask you if you own or rent. And just like you said, people have change in life circumstances where for a time it may be okay. How do you timestamp that? How do you lifelong guarantee through the property and through the, I don't think you can. I
Once
don't
you,
think
once you turn it
legally
over
can.
to an HOA, your company kind of, is,
Y'all are out
is,
of it.
and they turn it over to the HOA, then the HOA's got to be the one to enforce that rental rule.
Right, if I
That's
could, if I
correct.
could interject here from my experience, the HOA regulations weigh more heavily than any local or county ordinance. So the HOA has an attorney that would be hired on call or whatever, however the position is. My understanding is they would enforce those regulations set forth by the HOA and would send letters to the residents, and if the residents fail to comply, they are fined by that HOA, and things progress from there, is
Yes,
my
sir.
understanding of how they work.
That's correct, and if they don't pay the fines, then because their mortgage is subject to the HOA can actually lien the person's house. And so again, if you have a functioning HOA, which quality housing developments have, those covenants will be enforced.
Just don't see how, but okay.
Will the HOA be represented by people that are living there that are elected by the community to
Yes, ma'am.
run their community?
That's correct. Once,
Well, I think you're wrong in not doing a clubhouse. I'm in the 55 and older, 45 houses, and we have a clubhouse and we support it.
yes, ma'am.
You gotta have somewhere to meet. You can't meet out in the rain.
That was all my questions. Thank you.
All right, Barbara, do you have anything else?
I don't think so.
Okay, thank you.
I do have a question on
All right, okay, go ahead, Bill.
On the landscaping, will it be resident maintained, or is it, maintained by the HOA, or how does that, moving forward, I guess, is the question,
Yes, sir. It's maintained by the HOA.
Sorry, just for clarity, is that just the green spaces, or that's each lot as well? Like
It's
the,
each lot as well,
each lot as well? Thank you.
for the landscaping.
Okay.
Okay, Bill, anything else? All right, anybody else have a question or anything? All right, Mr. Allison, thank you so
Thank you.
much. All right, at this time, we'll open it up to citizenry for those against the rezoning. Hang on one second, please. What we're going to do is ask you to give your name, your address, and you'll have 5 minutes to speak, okay? And if you would, kind of help things move along, and if there's some repetitive stuff, please try to kind of put a curb on repetitiveness, okay? Thank you. Ma'am, go ahead. If you would come up to the podium, state your name and your address. Over there, ma'am. Yeah, use the microphone, thank you.
Okay, my name is Janice Toller, My address is 4205 Lawrenceville Highway, but my driveway is on Lion Street, and it's across from the concern. I've lived here all my married life, and there's nothing I've enjoyed more than watching this town grow. I'm concerned for this. I'm just really concerned because I own the property across from this street, and my main concern is safety. During the last 5 years, traffic on Lion Street has greatly, greatly increased. Many cars have been wrecked because of the heavy, heavy traffic on this road. And I've even had to put blocks on my driveway so people will be able to turn to get onto Lawrenceville Highway. And my biggest dream is for Lion Street to be spared this. It sounds like your proposal is great, and I know these townhouses probably will look really good, but as far as safety for me and the residents around, I think it would be a bad proposition. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Toller. Next? Yes, ma'am, go ahead. Ms. Swanson, go ahead.
Good evening. My name's Kathy Swanson. I live at 904 Lee Bird Road. I guess this is my question for the developers. Line Street is a nightmare to begin with traffic. It's barely a two-lane road now. Traffic is backed up on 20 at rush hour traffic coming in, backed up to Line Street. You're looking at putting 90 townhomes with a two-car garage, which is possibility of 180 vehicles twice a day exiting out of this property onto Line Street. So they're either going to turn left and go to 20 and try to turn left to go into Lawrenceville, which is never going to happen, or they're going to turn right and go down to Logan Drive, back behind in front of IHOP, and hit the post office traffic and the light at Home Depot right there and try to get out there, or they're going to try and go through all the little side streets to get out. And my question is, we have a lot of people that are buying some of these older homes on these side streets and renovating them. And I really don't think that they're going to want to see 180 vehicles traipsing through their little neighborhood twice a day during rush hour traffic, morning and night. And from what I understand, DOT will not put a light at Line Street and 20 due to the close proximity to CS Floyd 81 and 20. So there's just no possibility of a light being put there. And you've got one exit entrance into this subdivision. I don't see how the traffic's going to work with all those vehicles. I just don't see it. And that's why I'm opposed to it.
All right, thank you. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am, come on up.
I'm Linda Guthrie, and I own the property that 4125 Lawrenceville Road, and I have owned it with my family for 62 years. And so getting out into 20 Highway, Lawrenceville Road, I sit there 15, 20 minutes sometime to get out, especially between 3 and 7 o'clock. I'm not opposed to this being built, but it's a lot of apartments for one little bitty place. And the other thing is, if it is approved, I do want an 8-foot chain link fence where this property abuts to my land. I want an 8-foot, and I want it put up prior to any construction or grading on this project. And I would like it to be at least, a foot on their land. And that is because I do not want everybody going through my land while they're building, because I know I just went through the building of Freddy's, and I know what that was. It was a nightmare. So I would like to see that put up prior to any building or construction, because I do know the workers will walk over on your land and they will stay there. Also, I think a chain link fence, I don't oppose anybody having little dogs and all that, but they do turn them loose and they'll run on your property. And they may get hurt or something, so I'm opposed to that. And I don't want the mud from that place to come down across my property like it did at Freddy's. And I guess that's about all I can say right now till later. And we do have a line of trees back there, and I think the builder, if he does build this, he will talk to me about those. And I do want them contained or either taken down or something by the builder to keep them from being a problem between my place and his place. That is, if this gets approved. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Guthrie. If I could point out on the revised conditions, number 3 here, it's already put in there the need for the installation of a privacy fence and planning of screening. So they've got that in the works.
Yeah, but I want it to be an 8-foot chain link.
All right, I think the applicant was taking note of that, so,
And I have talked with the planning, and it does provide for that.
okay. All right, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
All right, anybody else? Yes, sir, come on up.
My name's John Sosby. I live at 261 Fair Street, which is right on the, well, it's 3 houses down from this proposed development. You're taking something that should be zoned light industrial or industrial and turning it to residential that abuts to light industrial. I live 4 houses down from what's already there. The beating and the banging from Bell South, the dumpster trucks, these people are not going to get any sleep. So you're mixing this industrial property with residential, basically. I don't see it working. Also, I have a question for the expansion of Line Street. If you're going to put a turn lane in, are you going to take the property from yourself and put that turn lane in?
If you would, go ahead, that'd be fine. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. So the right-of-way comes from our property, not the adjacent owners to the south. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir.
What are you going to do about the houses across the street from your proposed driveway that your headlights are going to be shining in all times of the day and night? The houses across the street on Line on the other side? Are y'all going to provide any screening for them? And as far as the turn lane in the center, all you're going to do is when you get up to 20, you're going to have somebody sitting in the left turn lane trying to make a left and somebody in the right-hand lane. Now the people in the right-hand lane can't see what's coming. So by widening that intersection, you're going to make the problem worse because you're going to create a big blind spot. Are y'all going to pay the medical bills for everybody that gets hit coming in and out of there? I know that's silly, but it's a point. Are you going to provide any sidewalks up and down Line Street for your pedestrians that you're putting in there? As far as I'm concerned, you ought to go ahead and just make it a trailer park like it already is zoned, but that's not feasible because of the way the laws are written in the state, well, in the city of Loganville, the spacing between the trailers has to be so much you couldn't make any money doing it. And if you want affordable housing, that's the way I would go with it. $300,000 price point on a townhome is ridiculous. The amount of traffic y'all are going to cause on Fair Street, Line Street, and all the other adjacent little roads is ridiculous. And that's all I have to say.
All right, thank you, Mr. Sosby.
You're welcome.
All right. Anybody else like to have 5 minutes to have some words?
Keith, can we get the applicant to address whether or not there will be sidewalks on Line Street, as Mrs. Sosby asked?
Yeah, we'll do that in just a second. If there's nobody else against, is there anybody here that would like to speak for the proposed rezoning? Okay, all right. Then at this time, if I could ask the applicant if they'd like to respond to any of those questions, thank you.
I'll start actually up at the top, if you guys don't mind. I'll try to hit as many of the comments that we heard. If I miss any, I promise it's not intentional. I'm just trying to take notes as quickly as possible. So starting with Ms. Toller, who is the property owner opposite our intersection of Line Street and Lawrenceville Highway. If you go out on Line Street today, you can see that they've had to put cinder blocks along her property frontage to prevent people from moving over to the right to try to pass left-hand turners. And so again, that's something that is going to be improved by what we're creating with the left-hand turn lane. Yes, we are putting sidewalk along the frontage and landscaping along Line Street. That's shown on our site plan. Trying to think what other questions there were that were really for us to address. As we mentioned, we've performed a traffic study that shows the traffic, done by traffic engineers. They don't work for me. They're not part of Revive. It's a matter of taking traffic counts, adding projected growth without our development, and then adding our development on it to show those counts. And we've shared that with staff. And I think that's really, the only thing for us to address, unless you guys have more questions for us.
Okay, thank you, sir. Any other questions? Bill?
Would you consider improving Lime Street from 20 to Fair Street, or as far as, because you're already working on a good part of it by adding that widening at 20, would you consider, doing any improvement to help the neighbors with that part of the road?
Yeah, I think we're planning sidewalks on that side, and certainly can do that. As far as improvements to the road, I'm not sure what those would be, as far as just widening the road. The city owns the road.
Yeah, I understand that, but, with working potentially with the city is to, potentially do some improvements to the sections that in front of your, abating Line Street on your property.
Yep, here's Barry Etheridge, our engineer.
Hi, Barry Etheridge. We are doing improvements on our side of the street. We're starting with the left turn, right turn lanes, and then we're improving our side of the street, going from a 10-foot lane to a 12-foot lane with curb and gutter along our entire frontage on Line Street. Then we have to taper back down to the existing road at our property line, at the corner of our property. As far as the other side of the road, there's a limited amount of room over there, and you be.
I just meant paving the whole thing from resurfacing while you're doing your part of the road is just resurface the whole road.
Well, there certainly is going to be the first half of our property will certainly be repaved where the left turn, right turn lane is, and then you have a taper going from that new lane down will all be repaved, and but
We don't have any plans beyond that.
Yeah, that would be something that would most likely, if I'm not mistaken, handled by the Public Works Department under any kind of budgeted item for street repair. That wouldn't be required under development regs, correct?
Yeah, we'd have to look at the condition of the roadway and the scale that it's on right now. That's how we determine our funding for paving roads. If that road does meet the criteria, then yes, it does get funding.
Okay. But it wouldn't be required by the developer? Or would it?
It'd be hard to require him to pave outside the scope of his property.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right, thank you.
I'd like to
Alma?
add something.
All right, Alma. All right, go ahead, Alma.
This question's for Robbie. Do you think it would be feasible, or would the state let us put a three-way stop at Lyon and 20?
Traffic count there, no.
No.
I know in our world, Lion Street has a lot of traffic, but in GDOT's world, that wouldn't even rank, and
Yeah, they wouldn't even.
they wouldn't even bat an eye at it. Yeah, there would be no way to get a three-way, a stop sign put on a state highway
Yeah,
with that
state
low of a
highway.
traffic count.
Well, it was just a question.
You never know unless you ask.
That's right.
All right, anything else, Alma?
Well, I would like to say something in reference to the HOAs. I live in a 55 and older, and we only have 60 homes, and we have a clubhouse. And our HOA states no leasing or rentals. And I've lived there for 22 years, and we've never had a problem. I'm not saying we won't have one next week, but
Yes, ma'am.
we had one person that wanted to rent, and we said no, and they went away. So,
The challenge is, it's been shown to be unconstitutional to 100% prohibit rentals, and that it opens the HOA open to lawsuits, where somebody could come in and challenge, say, you're limiting my constitutional rights. And that's just, typically, that's why you see any place that is giving a rental prohibition or rental cap, limit it to a percentage. Yes, ma'am.
We changed our covenants and they're filed with Walton County, and you are not renting in our 55 and older. And
Yes,
you're,
ma'am.
as far as your left and right-hand turn getting out on the Georgia 20, forget it. You might have to close your eyes and hold your breath and go.
All right, Amanda?
I was just going to point out that in the discussion of repaving Line Street, it's rather insulting. I've been in my home for 23 years, and suddenly you're going to talk about repaving Line Street and spending city money because we've got a new development coming in? That street's needed to be repaved for quite some time.
Well, I was not asking for the city to do it. I was asking for him to do it.
I understand. But then when we talk about he can only go so far with that, and
Right.
then anything above and beyond that is something the city would have to pick up, that's a bit of a slap in the face. It's needed to be done for quite some time. And as far as doing curb and gutter and widening to your property coming down Line Street to where it basically ends at Fair Street, that's the intersection that I'm talking about that is terrible. So you've widened just to taper it back down, coming into an already bad intersection. I just really have concerns with that for the motoring public. Not to mention the crumbling infrastructure of a tiny road that desperately needs improvements. It's great if you're willing to pony up some dollars for it, but it really doesn't address the largesse of that road at all. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anybody else with a question or comment for the applicant?
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to point out that HOAs are already required by ordinance, as are sidewalks. So just wanted to put that on the record.
Okay, yeah, because he had mentioned that per the drawing renditions, they were included in there, so I'm assuming that would be very similar to what would be expected to see on a final development, correct, from your pictures that were included in the presentation? Yes, sir. All right, awesome, thank you.
I'd just like to piggyback on Alma's question for just a second about the clubhouse. I understand that you mentioned that upkeep raises HOA fees because someone's got to maintain that clubhouse. But you're going to have 93 units, let's round it up to 100 and say 20% of those people will probably participate in the HOA meetings, right? So you probably just need a space that could hold maybe 20 to 30 people. What I guess, cost ramifications would that be to add a small building that could hold about 20 to 30 people into your plan?
And I would say this is where I get in trouble for desktop engineering. It's a really hard thing to say, a building that will hold 20 people isn't, square footage or dimensions, spec level. But I think it would be upwards of $750,000.
Oh, I don't think so. We had to enlarge our clubhouse because so many people participate. And we got 45 homes.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Ellison.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions, comments from the commission? Oh. All right. Can we allow for another comment from someone who's already spoke? All right. Come on, sir.
Again, John Sosby, I live on Fair Street. You answered a lot of the questions, but you still didn't answer the question about what are you going to do about the houses across the street that your headlights are going to be shining in when they're coming in and out. Didn't hear anything about that. So what about the people that are already living across the road that are going to get lights? I mean, would y'all like it if they pulled up to your house every night? I guarantee you there ain't one single person on that board that would sit there and take headlights pointed in and out of their house every night and every morning. So think about it. And it doesn't really matter because it all got to go before city council anyway, and we'll take the fight there. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right. Any other comments? All right. At this time, oh, go ahead, Alma.
Excuse me, I just have one more thing to say. If we're going to ever move forward in this town, we got to take a step at something. And I'd rather see these townhomes than I had a mobile home park. That's just my opinion, but I'm just saying that every time there's something that comes up, we go back 20 years, well, we haven't done this and we haven't done that. Well, maybe if we move forward, maybe the city will pave Fair Street. I have them going in next door to me, sir,
All right.
right now, as we speak.
All right. Let's keep the comments. All right. Is that it, Alma?
Yes.
Thank you so much. All right. Now, at this time, we'll look at the request for rezoning one by one. So on case R24-005, the Revived Land Group, CO Anderson, Tate, and Carr filed the application for regression and rezone of approximately 11.6 plus or minus acres located at 246 Line Street, Loganville, 30052, map and parcel LG 040062, Walton County, Georgia. Property owner is Lock and Roll Storage, LLC. The current zoning is MHP. The requested zoning is RM6 with a proposed development of fee simple townhomes. Do I have a motion to approve this request for rezone?
Motion to approve the rezoning from MHR to RM6 along with the staff recommended conditions.
All right, got a motion, do I have a second?
I got your second, but I have,
Before you actually vote, did you want to amend the condition to include the 8-foot fence for Ms. Guthrie?
We could do, yeah, I'm sorry, yes.
Since it's not specifically in that condition, I didn't know if you just wanted to have that inserted or not.
All right, now, go ahead, Tiffany. Yeah, we can't make the cover, we can? Okay. Covered pavilion, okay.
You can make a condition for a covered pavilion or a clubhouse.
Yeah. All right, now, all right, was it Miss Guthrie that was asking about the fence? All right, now, two came up, privacy fence and chain link. Chain link. All right. All right, now, if I could, let me just kind of throw something out here, totally off the subject or whatever. But if you require them to put the fence that far back onto their property, then who's going to maintain that part of their property behind the fence? And that it's going to make it very difficult for someone to, on their, without having to go on your property.
6 inches, I can maintain it.
Okay. All right. So can we do an 8-foot chain link, or?
I mean, it would be, obviously subject to preference of the council, I mean, of the commission, but staff recommendations would be for a privacy fence, which is wood, not a chain link fence.
Okay, that's kind of what I thought. Did the council have anything to say, or everything okay? Yeah, and, you know, the preference of the staff is the privacy, and ultimately, city council is going to have the final say, but we can make any recommendation we can, and it's just our recommendation, okay? That's what.
Make a recommendation for her privacy. Make a recommendation what she wants, and then council wants.
That's what I just said, Amanda. Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. So, do I have an amended motion?
Chairman, I would request that if we are changing the amendments, we read them over again before the vote is held.
Oh, okay.
Just to, as a formality, just to make sure that everybody understands what is being voted on.
Okay, all right. So with the notes I have here, the staff amended recommendations are: number one, as a result of the complications in meeting various roadway designs criteria for a second entrance to the complex, the staff recommends its first recommendation to require a second driveway along Lawrenceville Road, and it'll serve as an emergency access point that will be gated with a Knox box subject to GDOT approval. Number two, no changes to the second condition, widen the road on Line Street, creating dedicated left turn lane and right turn lanes for no fewer than 5 cars attempting to turn onto Lawrenceville Road, subject to the GDOT approval. And on number three, which we were just discussing, amend the third recommendation to the state, to state the need for installation of a 8-foot chain link fence. The HOA requirements of no more than 15% rental, and the recommendation of a covered pavilion, and planting of screening evergreen trees as infill where necessary between the townhomes and abutting residential parcels located at 4077 and 4125 Lawrenceville Highway, as well as along the property line with 4075 Lawrenceville Highway to stream buffer. Nothing is to be done within the sewer easement or stormwater pond access easement. This will be subject to review by the planning staff before the issuance of the development permit. Okay? All right. Just with what was just read, you can say to amend with what was just read.
Okay. I want to amend my motion as a motion to approve the rezoning from MHR to RM6 with the staff recommended conditions, and also 8-foot chain link fence, which does amend the conditions a little bit, HOA rental of, condition of no more than 15%, and a covered pavilion.
All right. Do we have a second? Got a second? All those in favor, say aye. All right. All those opposed? All right. With a vote of 4-2, that will go before City Council as a recommendation to approve the rezoning. All right, on our second case, R24-006, again, the Revive Land Group, CO Anderson, Tate, and Carr filed the application requesting to rezone approximately 4.981 plus or minus acres located at 234 Line Street, Loganville, 30052. This map and parcel is LG 040063 in Walton County, Georgia. The property owner is Ronald Clifford Peeler. The current zoning is L1, and the requested zoning is RM6 with the proposed development of fee simple townhomes. Do I have a motion to approve this rezoning request?
Motion to approve the rezoning from LI to RM6 with the staff recommended conditions, including an 8-foot chain link fence, HOA rental no more than 15%, and a covered pavilion.
All right, do I have a second?
Second.
All right. All right, have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. All right, those opposed? All right, again, 4-2. This will pass over to the City Council as a recommended approval. All right, we thank you for that. One other thing that I want to bring up tonight, it came up in discussion that possibly there needs to be some verbiage added into the requirements for this commission, whether or not the discussion with an applicant to be held prior to a meeting. Since it did not get put on this agenda, I would like to say that we can add this to our next meeting's agenda, and we can have it up for discussion then, okay?
Explain what you're talking about.
There was some discussion before this meeting where the applicant wanted to speak to the members of the commission, and that was gone through the city, through Robbie. An email was sent to the membership and asked if they wanted to contact the developer or the developer to contact them. And that was not met with good approval. So there's no verbiage in the city charter that says we can or we cannot talk to a developer or an applicant prior to the meeting. There's some feeling that that's improper, so without any kind of verbiage that says we cannot, it's up to the individual to state whether they will or they will not. So we're going to have that up for discussion at our next meeting, if that's okay with the commission. Okay? All right, thank you. All right, if there's nothing else, ask for motion to adjourn? Got a motion, got a second? All those in favor, say aye. Thank you very much for coming out tonight.